And welcome to everybody over here on YouTube for Off the Hook Overtime. Yes, there's more of our revealing discussions. Kyle, you seem to have made it over into YouTube land.
What?
And
Hey, YouTube.
Kyle and you're Kyle.
My name is Kyle.
Yeah, I know who you are. We have Rob T. Firefly and Gila, who also appear to have made it not only to YouTube but through Skype land. Is that true?
Our name isn't Kyle.
No, that's
Our name isn't Kyle.
we all
Neither
know.
of our names is Kyle,
If we
actually.
could move past the obvious, that would be good. Another thing I noticed is that Alex is not with us. Did he leave?
He did. He was unable to join us for our overtime this week, but he
He-
sends his best.
He sends his best. He did tell us that because he is about 6 hours ahead of us right now.
You know, that excuse is getting awfully. He travels. Doesn't anybody not see this? He travels to Europe every week just to avoid being on overtime, so he can use that excuse of being 6 hours ahead of us.
I've noticed that.
I've seen he never goes west. You never see him in Hawaii. You never see him in Japan. No, because that'd be early, and then he'd be able to be on the show. But no, if he goes 6 hours over there, yeah, then it suddenly becomes late. It's like what, 2 in the morning now? Okay, I'm starting to see through this. I'm starting to see through this. Years of this, and I'm starting to understand what's going on here.
But we are live on YouTube. It's nice to be back, and we sound good, I think.
And I hope Alex is listening. I really do.
We are live on YouTube. Welcome to the 24 people who are with. Oh, that just changed. 26, as I was speaking. 26 people who are with us right now. And if your name is or is not Kyle, regardless, we're glad to have you with us. And yeah, it is good to be back, everybody.
Well, you are here each week, right? You're not. We were once back.
Right, but it's back. It's nice to be back on overtime because
Yes.
in your absence, we don't have the phone, so it's a lot less
Yeah,
fun.
we took
and
the phone
in
with
your
us.
absence, people did miss overtime. People kept asking me why we weren't doing overtime, and I'm glad to stop disappointing people.
I'm also just gonna share something from the chat really quick.
Mhm.
I think Rebel has just offered to buy me a BMX bike.
Oh wow.
So I will gladly take you up on that, sir. If you're buying me a BMX bike, let's go ahead with that.
Wait, Rebel, how come she gets a BMX bike? She doesn't even know how to shift, okay?
It has one gear. It has one gear.
I was hoping she didn't know that. All right, Rebel, if you could buy me something with more gears, I'd appreciate that. So we all like riding bikes, at least, right?
I'm so
Yeah.
pro bicycle.
You rode a bike today in the heat.
I did
45 minutes in the heat.
with
Well,
shorts, which
what-
was different.
Yeah, but not draped around your head. That's not how you're supposed to do it.
No,
All right.
no, it doesn't help with the aerodynamics.
Should we give out the phone numbers so we can
I'm ready,
get back
like-
in touch with our listeners who
I
we
have-
haven't talked to in a while? We
I
saw
have
we
the-
saw some of our listeners
the
out in
button.
Vegas at DEF CON. We went out there and talked to a bunch of people, and it's so good to
It turns out they talk back.
they do. They're human beings, and they have all kinds of thoughts and theories and opinions, and it's great to exchange those every now and then. But boy, there's a lot of people out there that have listened or are listening or swear they will listen someday.
I gotta say, I was a little like I was kind of overwhelmed. It was a lot of people, and like you kind of don't know if someone's a listener or not, and then you're like, okay, what did you listen to that was not inspiring?
Well, a
That did
number
not
of
bring
people.
you joy.
This is no exaggeration. A number of people would come up to us and say, "I know that voice." They hear you, Kyle. They say, "I know that voice. Where do I know that voice from?" We're like, "You must be mistaken, sir. Please move on."
Yeah,
But no, that didn't
multiple
work.
times.
After a while, they figured it out that you were in fact on the radio, and of course they know my voice too. I try to keep quiet. That's why. But there are a lot of people out there that listen to the show, swear by the show, swear at the show.
Hearing those stories though, and like that, the impact it has just day to day, or in having listened for a while, maybe the family pet or a spouse or someone is there with you, like you realize, wow, that and I as a listener, like that was kind of what I was doing, making time and listening while with others around, and staying informed, staying kind of around some of the topics that I enjoyed, and I'm just it was kind of thrilling to get feedback in person, and yeah, what a ride. But
it was something.
so unusual because, as I pointed out in some of the discussions I had with listeners or with people talking about the show, like, you're speaking out into the abyss, and I guess that's a little different with the stream and chat being there with a real time sort of updates, but that experience and like just knowing you're part of someone's routine or
Yeah.
their playlist, basically.
It's the magic is retained to a degree online, where people can listen anywhere in the world, and that's really cool. But it doesn't compare to the magic of actual radio, where you have no idea how many people are out there. You have no way of tracking them or compiling statistics. You just wonder, are you talking to 5 people or 5 million people? There's no way to really know, except for interactions like this where you meet people who say, hey, I heard this show a number of months or years ago and I remember it. And you realize, wow, people actually do listen. And it's always cool to realize that.
Yeah, it's not really designed for that, like, high intensity conversation, like meeting people, and it's unusual to hear, and just totally kind of amazing to realize that, and catch up with people, and yeah.
Our phone number, 802-321-4225, 802-321-HACK is our phone number, and we're waiting for the first call to come in. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I was mentioning it's broadcasting is sort of one way, but the other thing I realized is people have so many options with this, like this kind of thing of like everybody has a podcast now, and it really is true. The medium has like a lower cost of entry, and people are able to stream, they're able to share. So you're kind of also blown away that people are listening to us.
Mm-hmm.
Versus all the other stuff out there they could be listening to, which is kind of an amazing realization.
Or
when
not
they're
listening
saying,
at all. They could be listening to absolutely nothing. Or having
they could just be listening to albums or something.
But that's
that
what
they're taking time to be a part of this discussion is
right.
Also really kind of mind blowing.
But that's part of what we were talking about before. It's just, with radio, you just there's a limited number of voices and options. But it's also an identity for a particular location or a particular format. And that's, I think, what brings people together when people say, hey, did you hear that? Or, even on television, did you watch that last night? Yeah, we can see anything we want. We can detach ourselves. We can all do our own thing. Or we can at least occasionally get together and share experiences. And I think that's something that we kind of overlook sometimes. Yeah, Gila, go ahead.
And I think the thing that's fascinating about that is that the consolidation of so many pieces of the media landscape, which you'd think would be leading itself to a multiplicity of voices. But because
I'm sorry.
No, it's you're just anticipating what I'm going to say. I think because the consolidation of so many pieces, of so many people owning, like, weren't there rules about something like this that got shot down a few years ago?
Yeah.
And I think about Sinclair Broadcasting especially, and what they're doing in multiple markets where they own multiple stations, and that so few companies own so many stations, that we're in a city where my family used to live. There are 3 stations of, I think, 5 local channels that share one newsroom.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just on air consistently because one, like, the news is at 9, one is at 10, one is at 11. They have, fleece jackets that have, like, the 3 logos on it.
Yeah.
And that just, I don't understand how this paucity of voices and this paucity of change, like, we were talking about this a while ago, right? The moments where everybody was watching something together and everybody was experiencing something together. And I said, I feel like the last time something like that happened was probably Baby Jessica in 1987.
Who the hell's Baby Jessica?
Oh, tell me you don't remember.
Oh, is this
Baby
the
Jessica.
kid that stumbled into a well?
Yeah,
Okay.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Wait, did she live or not?
she did.
Okay, I'm sorry,
She did.
Jessica, if you're out there. I didn't mean to insult you.
They pulled her out of the well, but like the entire country was watching this baby in a well, and everybody was watching the same thing in the same moment and understanding it in the same way. And we were talking about this at home and said, does that happen anymore? Or
Well,
is
no,
it
I
everything's
think it does. I mean, you have earthquakes, 9/11, Trump. You know, these are all disasters that occurred, and everybody was glued to the TV at the same time, shaking in terror.
but I don't think there were any conspiracy theories that were being contemporaneously spread about, say, Baby Jessica falling in the well.
Oh, you'd
So we
be
were talking about this.
surprised, Gilly. You'd
I
be
know.
very surprised.
I probably would.
Yeah.
But
How
we were
did she
talking
get in
about,
the well? Who pushed her? You know, all kinds
Right.
of.
we're talking about moments that everybody experienced together.
Mhm.
And Rob said January 6th. I said everybody was watching January 6th, but
Like
it's
the Challenger disaster.
I said it's different now.
But that was before Baby Jessica. That was '86.
The Challenger was
Yeah.
I said when we were watching the Challenger, nobody was cheering for the O-rings when the Challenger exploded.
Right. When Columbia exploded on the way back, it didn't get nearly the same ratings as Challenger. NASA was very disappointed by that.
We don't watch that sort of thing anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't watch them coming home. That's who wants to watch the splashdown.
Speaking of which, have you guys been following the latest Elon Musk project of sending 3 civilians up into space and telling them to do a spacewalk and come back? And this one I'm very nervous about. It was supposed to launch yesterday and the day before, but because of a leak and because of weather, they had to postpone it. So it's sometime in the future, but this is what the future of our manned space program apparently is relying upon. So I'm very nervous about that. Very nervous because I don't trust him. I don't trust any decisions he makes, and just worried about where this could possibly head.
Yeah, the Falcon 9 booster rocket, which is SpaceX's reusable rocket, is finished being reused because it blew up. And everyone is okay this time, but that means that anything they want to do is now in a holding pattern until the FAA fully investigates this and does whatever paperwork they have to do and so on. But it also means that I don't know, Elon's next ego boost is probably going to have to come from a stupid tweet or something instead of another rocket.
No, but this rocket is about to be launched. It would have been launched this morning had there not been bad weather. So it's very imminent. It's very imminent, and he might be having to hold off on one thing, but doesn't mean there aren't a number of other things that are happening as well. Which, it's great if it works. It's great if everything is done properly. I don't have the faith I once did.
I think we're talking about a couple different launches.
Yeah, I think
but,
so.
I think there's a call. So
Oh,
if
is
you
there a
wanted
call?
to go ahead and take that.
Okay, I don't hear the ring. Okay, I haven't done this in a while, so bear with me.
Everybody, watch your ears.
Oh, there it is. That's the telephone channel. And good evening. You're on Off Look Overtime. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you
All right,
fine.
we've established
really
contact.
Really glad you opened about WCBS 880 because I started listening to them around 1973, 1974.
Wow.
So I was glued to my radio ever since I learned that they were leaving the air. And I always thought of Wayne Cabot and Paul Murnane as the Hawkeye and Trapper John of WCBS because they took their work incredibly seriously, like the characters from MASH, but they didn't take themselves seriously. So they were excellent broadcasters, but they had this incredible irreverent sense of humor and incredibly quick-witted, and it's terrible that the station is gone, and they're all their colleagues, Steve Scott, Michael Wallace, Bridget Quinn, Tanya Hansen, so many talented, gifted reporters, and it's such a waste.
They read the names Sunday night, and I could not believe how many names I recognized, either from the distant
Yeah.
past or from the present. And all respect to WINS, I don't have the same reaction. I don't think I know a single name from WINS. It's great that there's another news station, but it's not the same.
No, it's not. I did email a curator at the Paley Center, and I asked him about acquiring part of the archive of WCBS, because I'd hate to see what happened with MTV and Comedy Central, where the parent company just deleted their archives. So he emailed back to me that he was talking to Odyssey about trying to secure part of that archive, because that would be terrible if those idiots just deleted everything.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
would be a tragedy.
But it would be totally in keeping with our expectations, because they don't get it. They don't understand the magic of radio, which clearly you do. I'm wondering, have you recorded anything over the years?
No, I have not, but I heard Wayne Cabot during the over the weekend. He was mentioning that he's an archivist himself. So from what he was saying, it sounds like he probably has accumulated maybe several hundred or maybe even over 1,000 hours.
Wow.
So maybe the Paley Center could get in touch with Wayne Cabot and see if he'd be willing to donate or make copies of some of that stuff. Because I was particularly moved by their coverage during the COVID lockdown, because these people were all broadcasting out of their homes. And it was amazing. The broadcast quality was seamless. I mean, Wayne was broadcasting from his home in New Jersey, and Paul Murnane was broadcasting from his home in Connecticut. And if you tuned in, if you didn't know that, you'd never know, because the quality of the broadcast signal was just as smooth. It was like magic.
And that brings up an important point, because one of the strong arguments for shutting down radio stations is cost. Is the fact we can't possibly run another newsroom. Well, that's proof that you don't have to. You can consolidate in various ways, but still have the people that report the news still bring that out over the air, and at least to the listener, it will be transparent.
Right. And you know what I was thinking of? There was a guy, Neil Postman, who used to have a show on BAI. I think it was actually when you guys first started with Off the Hook. Do you remember him?
I
He was
don't
a
remember
media
him. I know the
studies
name. I
professor.
didn't know he had a show on BAI. Or was
No,
it?
he did. He did.
Okay.
Very short-lived. But he wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death.
Yeah, and Roger
that's
Waters
what I
put out
think
an
we-
album called "Amused to Death," which is based on
But
that.
I think that's where we are at this point in history. And if Karl Marx were alive today, he had that famous quote, "Religion is the opiate of the masses." I think he'd have to amend it to "Religion and ESPN and Sports Talk Radio are the opiate of the masses."
Can you explain to me why there are two ESPN stations on AM? In fact, they even have the same programs on for a good part of the day. Did they not know there was already an ESPN? But they already own that other station, so I don't get it. I don't understand how
No,
that's
I don't
even
get it either,
excusable.
You're asking the wrong guy, because I'm the person that would like a 24-hour documentary channel on cable, and I'd like a 24-hour foreign language film channel.
I've got
And we
some
don't
news
have
for
either
you.
of those things.
I've got some news for you. When Kyle and I were in Los Angeles, we went to the famous Chinese theater that shows films, and we saw a terrible film there. It was called Cuckoo. If anybody wants to see a really bad film, but that's not the news. The news is that there were people with some kind of a display in the main lobby, and it looked like they were from the Discovery Channel, and they had something called the Documentary Channel that they were about to introduce. So there is going to be a documentary channel. It might not be what we like it because it's run by Discovery, but it's something. In Canada, they've had a documentary channel forever.
That's
And
true.
that's pretty
That is
good.
true.
But this is coming.
And one other thing, you know what I'd love to see? How about a cable channel where you could actually watch national newscasts from other countries around the world dubbed into English?
Oh, boy.
Like just go in and see the national network newscast from Finland, Uruguay, Chile, Mongolia, all translated into English. I mean, I think
We are just going to frustrate ourselves because I think you and I see see the same thing here. How about this? How about a foreign film channel? Nothing but foreign films, subtitles, all that kind of thing. No commercials. Why don't we have that?
No, that's what I want. That's what I want.
Foreign films, foreign newscast of all sorts. How about this? A TV channel just devoted to the 1970s. 1970s commercials, 1970s newscasts, everything 1970s. You never break out of it. Then you have another one for the 1960s, one for the 1980s. Yeah, it could be very, very
Right.
popular, but you don't ever break out of the format. You don't have, big bugs in the bottom right of the screen. You don't have infomercials. You don't break in with ridiculous present day commercials, and you don't edit the shows. That's what I want to see, and that's where television can really excel. But the people in charge don't get it, and they will never do anything like that.
Yeah, and the last point I want to make, though, what Wayne said was so true about other sources of news, because the people that call in sports talk radio, I got news for them. If the Mets or Yankees, whoever wins the World Series Super Bowl, it doesn't make a goddamn difference to your quality of life. But if Donald Trump wins or Kamala Harris wins, the consequences will be drastically different in either scenario. So that's what counts. Winning the Super Bowl, it's bullshit. It's not going to change your fucking life. But if Trump wins, it's one thing. It's Armageddon. But if Kamala Harris wins, it's going to be very different. And that's what I don't understand, that these idiots get so obsessed about the results of the season of their local sports team. Totally fucked up.
It's a form of escapism. I get that. I get why people are drawn to it and why they feel some joy if their team wins. But you should never escape, the reality of what's going on in the world. Yeah, escape for a bit, but don't forget what's happening that you're escaping from, or it'll really be unpleasant, and you'll wind up with some bad choices made by other people.
It's just bread and circuses. It's like it all comes back to Neil Postman. We are amusing ourselves to death. We definitely are, or some of us are, but some of us care. But thanks again for doing that. And I have some links that I'll try to email you. There are some YouTube channels just devoted to radio air checks, and you might find some interesting stuff there.
Cool.
So I'll try to get that out to you in the next couple of days.
Great.
Because I was looking for stuff about CBS all weekend, about their history. So keep up the great work.
Thank
and maybe
you.
I'll see you at the Paley Center one of these
Yes,
days.
definitely. All right, thanks for the call.
Have a great night.
You too. Take care. Well, a lot of people out there who get it. Unfortunately, they're not the ones pulling the strings.
Yeah, wow. I think he mentioned the pandemic. I know like a lot of sports shut down, and that was a very interesting observation for me. I don't know, like I feel like I got a lot of insight into what that means to have, especially around like the workplace and small talk. And I guess there was just this hunger to get back to quote normal. And as soon as the sports were back, it was just like nothing happened. And it is a form of escape. I think everybody has different things they enjoy. There is, I think, a purpose to the lessons of sportsmanship and the idea that you can be rooting for the same team and maybe not see eye to eye on everything in life, but it certainly has taken on such importance that there's a certain amount of, I think, bliss or just blind spots. I don't know how to describe it. It's terribly sad when you realize like the level of importance people place in it, when and how much of that is sort of bled over from the business aspect of it.
You know
'cause
what,
it is a business.
But Kyle, what's really frustrating to me is that at least here in New York now we have 5 all sports channels, 5 all sports stations on AM and FM. First of all, okay, I want to hear sports. Which one do I listen to? Which is it 660 AM, 880, 1050, 98.7, 101.9? Yeah, I know all the frequencies.
You're
But
right.
which one do I listen to? Why do I listen to one over the other? Explain that to me. It's not because of a team. because guess what? The teams get broadcast on other stations as well. WCBS had the Mets. Yeah, it used to annoy me because I'd like to hear the news, and instead they had a Mets game on, so they were already doing sports. So they broadcast games on different stations. That's not the issue. You don't need a 24/7 sports station for every possible version of sports. But the thing that really gets me is that they're all talking about the same thing. They're all talking about the Mets and the Yankees and the Jets and the Giants. They don't talk about a UEFA. They don't talk about FIFA. They don't talk about international sports. They don't talk about anything I'm interested in. All these sports channels, and there's nothing that I can relate to. And I have different interests, but I'm still interested in organized sports to a degree. I don't want it to take over my life, but how come they're all talking about the same thing? This is what the problem with radio is. And it's not just sports. It's music as well. Listen to the way music is programmed, and you'll see that the stations that take chances, they don't survive. The only stations that continue to be bought and sold are the ones that do the same thing everyone else does. It's a crazy business model. It doesn't work anywhere else. But in the world of radio, don't take chances. Just do what everybody else tells you to do. That's how it works. Except in non-commercial radio. Go ahead, Gila.
So there were two things I was thinking about. And the first one is how I've always noticed that sports journalism, be it television or radio, is the one place where journalists don't even have to pretend to have a veneer of objectivity. I moved to the New York area from Minnesota, and the Twins and the Yankees were playing a series, and I was in Minnesota when it started and in New York when it ended, and busy hearing people talking about the good guys and the bad guys and how ugly the stadium was, and I was fascinated. But also, there's this service where you can buy CDs of the it was like for DJs. And it was, these are the songs that are going to get radio airplay in this particular month. And you could buy them, like, it was a subscription service. And it was like, this is what it's going to be. And it was fascinating. It was like, that's what I call music, but before it had come out. And this was 20 years ago, and it was already that regulated. So I'm and again, it's the paucity of voices and the streamlining of who and what we get to hear.
Right. And it's not,
which becomes frustrating.
It's not a government control. It's a business control.
It's a business control.
It's people who have no courage and no foresight to do something different, something outrageous and courageous. Remember Pix 101.9? Does anybody remember that? That used to be a new wave station in New York City. It had a cult following, and they were on the air for years, but reality caught up with them, and they had to turn into something more commercially acceptable. Same thing with WLIR. I could go on. And on. It's so frustrating. But fortunately, we have non-commercial radio, has its own problems, and we've lost a number of stations to all kinds of other entities. But let's take a phone call. And good evening. You're on Off the Hook Overtime. Go ahead.
Yes, Emmanuel. Calling from my nice new Bluetooth headset. How is the sound quality?
Does anybody hear anything?
Yes.
I'm not picking up. I'm just picking up like a buzzing noise. Just like this. Yeah, it's really.
Okay, let me get closer.
No, Rebel, we hear you fine. Don't go crazy. No,
Okay.
we're just messing with you.
Yeah. Why? I noticed that I was testing this out. Did you know that voicemail compresses your voice? Like, there's like whether. I know somebody with a Verizon phone that calls me and that their sound quality is so good. I don't think it's the phone. It's different. And then when she calls my voicemail, the sound quality is not as good. I guess the voicemail compresses.
There are some phones that sound really good. Some cell phones. And I think if you're calling from one company to a phone on the same company, you get extra bandwidth. And I don't think that carries over to voicemail. To answer your question, Kyle, did you have a theory about this?
Okay. No.
I was going to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, just often it's when both devices and networks are compatible with that sort of enhanced, I think it's HD voice or something.
Yeah, which is about time, with all this like 5G crap going on. It's about time we have some decent clarity in our voice signal.
But voicemail and voice messaging
Yes.
itself, it's probably visual voicemail as it is the translations and all of that. They are obviously interested in just getting the information and not clarity. So I could easily see that being an aspect of it that suffers in comparison.
Right. But somebody is calling me from a Verizon phone, and I have T-Mobile. Their voice sounds perfectly clear and everything, and when they leave me a voicemail, their voice doesn't. It sounds cell phone-like.
What happens when you call them?
I don't know because I haven't really kind of.
Because they never pick up? No, that's not right. You should, you got to keep
No.
trying, man.
No, actually,
Don't give up that
I
easily.
don't know. You know what? You know what I did? I went to a cell phone store, the Verizon cell phone store. I called their demo phone from my phone, and the voice sounds clear. It sounds when I call them, the voice sounds clear. But when I had it, I called my own cell phone. It sounds clear. But when I left voicemail, it sounded like a cell phone. So that answers that question. But does this Bluetooth headset, like the last caller sounded pretty good. Do I sound just as good as the last caller?
You sound as good as you've ever sounded.
Okay. Now, remember what was the star button and the pound button for in the 70s on the touchtone phone?
Well, the official explanation in the phone book was reserved for future use.
Oh, it said it in the phone book, really?
It did, yeah. Well, people wanted to know what the hell these buttons were for, so it said reserved for I can't give you a phone book right now, but if you go back in time and go to the 70s or something, you'll probably see it there. And they kept that promise. They used it in the future, which is now the past.
I'm talking on the speakerphone.
You actually sound better.
That's a little better.
Yeah.
I sound better?
Yeah.
Oh,
isn't
no,
that-
not the speakerphone. This is the regular phone.
Oh, we need a regular phone.
Now I'm on the speakerphone.
Are you calling us from a landline?
No, I'm not calling. I'm calling from my cell phone. But I'm on the speakerphone. I'm on my cell phone.
What do you mean
on
you're
the
calling from the
speakerphone.
regular phone? You have extensions on your cell phone?
No.
How does this work?
Okay. I'm calling from my cell phone and it's in speaker mode
Right now.
right now.
Okay, you're on speaker. Okay. And what was the other one you did?
Okay. The other one I did is this is regular mode. This is regular, like talking, holding it to your.
Well, that sounds
Yeah.
better. Am I right? Does that?
Yeah.
That sounds better.
That sounds better.
We just figured this out now that talking directly into a phone is better than talking on the speaker.
So this doesn't sound good. This doesn't
No, it
sound
does. It
good?
sounds a little crappy actually. If you want my honest opinion.
Okay. Now this sounds better, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Let me put the Bluetooth
It's like
back
going to
on.
the eye doctor. It's really annoying.
How does it sound now?
Well, you weren't saying anything, so it didn't sound like much. Got to say more than that.
Oh no, this is the headset now.
Okay, it doesn't sound as good as it did before. When I said it sounded good, you should have stuck with that because that's as
Okay,
good
well,
you're going
then
to
I'll
get, I
have
think.
To, all right, then I'm going to have to do this thing. I'm going to turn this off.
This is Overtime, where we test Rebel's phone connections all night long until he gets it right.
All right, now this is the regular phone, or this is the regular, cell phone.
Well, you sound better, but not as good as before. But maybe that's because I'm annoyed now.
What do you mean not as good as before? This is the
I
best way.
don't understand it any more than you do. I just know that the sound of your voice is beginning to make my blood curdle. It's a weird thing.
Speakerphone now. What else? Let's
Yeah.
test the number.
I don't know how much of a take.
Let's test the number. You want to hold?
Close. Rebel,
Hold
it's
on.
been fun as always. We'll talk to you in a future week.
Okay.
We have to open up the phone lines for other people, though.
Good luck with
By the way, there's a 2600 meeting. Oh, not this weekend, but next weekend.
Next
By the way,
Friday.
all-in-one computers. I suggest people get all-in-one computers, like the computers that do not have the tower, where everything's in the monitor,
Okay.
because it looks like a computer terminal. You could run Linux on it.
Yes, you can run Linux on lots of things.
Yeah, I know, but if you have like an all-in-one computer, like an iMac or something, like where, it looks like like on a that's what I want to do.
I think, yeah. I mean, hackers tend to have a lot of things on their desk,
Do
so
people still
it
buy
does,
iMacs?
does help. Some hackers don't like
I-
anything on their desk, though.
Do
Yeah,
iMacs
they
still
still
come
have
out? Are
it.
iMacs still a
I
thing?
think there's something like that. Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a Macintosh. That it's like the screen, it's the CPU, and you hook the keyboard. You could use Bluetooth for the keyboard and mouse, or you could hook things up into the USB. It even has USB ports in the back as a monitor.
Lots of
Good to know.
advantages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for this advice.
Yeah, Dell has a good computer. The Dell has a computer that looks at it.
Dell, they're still around too. I feel like I'm talking to Rebel of the past. All right.
Yeah, Dell. It has an Ethernet port. It has a headphone jack, and it has USB-C. All in the back of the monitor.
What about a modem?
Well, there's an Ethernet port. It has
okay.
You could do Wi-Fi.
Just testing.
or-
Just testing. Okay. Well, Rebel, thank you for that advice, and we'll talk to you again soon. Good night.
Okay.
All right. 802-321-4225 is our phone number. That was educational, entertaining, and enlightening all in one, I think.
For those interested in the beginnings of touch-tone telephony, it might be interesting to note that the debut of tone dialing in this country happened in 1963, and Western Electric made a push-button phone that had only 10 digits. It only 10 buttons. It had 1 through 9. It had the 0 hanging out by itself. It did not have the star or the pound sign. Those were introduced on the Western Electric 2500 in 1968.
And if you have a phone like that, it's probably worth a pretty penny. A phone that only has 0 in the last column and nothing, no star, no pound. But also there is a fourth row. There is a fourth row called ABCD that goes down the far right next to 3, 6, 9, and pound. Because, well, that's how phones work. If basically each button is a combination of a tone from each column and row. So that obviously leaves another row at the end. And that was what silver boxes were used for. But that's another story. We have another call. Good evening. You're on Off the Hook. Overtime.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. This is I'm from Queens, Howard.
Oh, yeah. Our friend from Queens. Our friend from Queens with the dog.
That's right. I was going to say a couple of things. Number one, I can't believe what they did to CBS. Now they got 50,000 watts of crap going all over the country.
Thank you. Exactly. You got it.
That's a clear channel. They're out on they're in Long Beach somewhere. They got a great antenna because they're right near the salt water. That thing puts out a signal all over 880. It's a clear channel. No other station. When I was in Europe back in the 90s, and I lived in Greece for a while, you could hear CBS 880 at night coming
No,
into
we
Europe.
could hear it in Europe? Holy
you could
crap.
hear
I had
it.
no idea.
Oh yeah, it's clear channels. Got a great signal. And if you drive down to Florida, you can hear 880 all the way down to Florida,
Right.
all the way down I-95. So guess
Well,
what?
at night anyway, not during the daytime.
These guys who own this really ruined it. And I got to tell you something. Yeah, I listened to a sign off. I remember as a kid when it switched from music, and they had some game shows. It went over to news in 1967.
That's right. That's right.
1967. So what can I tell you? They're actually simulcasting the same BS on 3 different stations at the time on the AM dial. That's what happens when the FCC changed its rules and regulations, saying that one guy could own more than one station in an area. And
Used
the
to-
FCC would never allow simulcasting.
Yeah, it used to be, I think, 5 stations total, and you couldn't own more than one, unless it was AM and FM and it was grandfathered in like WQXR.
Right, but there's one thing. The FCC said you had to have different programming on your AM signal and on your FM signal, so you couldn't have the same programming.
Right. I remember that.
In the late 70s.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, I can understand why they did it because, hey, it takes a lot of energy to run the newsroom and everything. but I'm surprised somebody should have bought that station. It's just a shame. It's called RF pollution, okay? It's called RF noise. That's all it is now.
Yeah, it is. I can't imagine that it has anything near the amount of support that WCBS had. And to give up the call letters, I don't get that at all. Why would you give up WCBS, these iconic call letters, and replace? Does anybody remember what the call letters are of the new station?
I think it's WHSQ, and I don't understand why. They can get that back because, the call letters don't mean anything. You can ask the FCC as long as no one else has it. They'll give it to you. You
Right.
can make up any caller. The only requirement is that east of a certain place, your station starts with a W. Every station's got to start with a W. The last three letters you can pick.
Right, but the thing is that there are some grandfather stations like KYW in Philadelphia, 3 letters and a K. So if you give that up, you don't get that back.
You're probably right, like KDKA in Pittsburgh.
Exactly. And WOR New York, 3 letters. If they gave that up, they would never get 3 letters back.
Well, if no one else took it, WOR is not going to give it an ABC. By the way, you take ABC, which is not a bad station, pretty far to the right, but I listen to them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're not owned by the same people as American Broadcasting Company, so all I can tell you is this. WINS, I never really liked. I like CBS better. I always thought WINS was a lower class station.
I agree.
Plus, it doesn't have it.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Signal.
And their signal is not nearly as good as well.
Well, that's because of the antenna. They have to protect. They have a station. I forgot who they're protecting, but at night they have to protect the station. I think north of them.
Uh-huh.
See, CBS was one of the very few stations in the country that they didn't have to protect any other station because they had a clear channel. But when you have certain stations, you have to change your pattern so you don't interfere with a station nearby.
Right, unless you're a clear channel station like 880 is, and continues to be. It would make more sense, even if they're going to stick with keeping WINS and losing WCBS, swap the frequencies. You own both of them and have all news on the better frequency. That would make more sense to me. I'd still be upset that WCBS was gone, but...
I've spoken to a couple of engineers, and everybody's shaking their head saying, from an engineering point of view, this was a ridiculous move. You're right. They should have left CBS the same, taken WINS, because CBS not only took care of New York news, but if something happened, like a 9/11, whatever, it was a great station for nationwide coverage. So I can't see how the FCC said this was okay. But guess what? There's nobody home in the FCC anymore.
Right. Hey, Rob, you have something to say?
Yeah, with what you were saying about the call letters, unfortunately, the WCBS call letters are probably never coming back, and I'll tell you why. Because in 2017, CBS unloaded their radio business, selling it to Entercom, and part of the deal was that Entercom would be able to continue to use the WCBS and the CBS trademarks, which are still owned by CBS, which is now a Paramount subsidiary. So if somebody, say, wanted to start their own radio station down the line and wanted the WCBS call letters, they would very likely have to fight a legal battle with Paramount over the WCBS trademark, which Entercom did not have an infinite license to use.
You're right about that, but understanding one thing, you cannot own a call letters. Those call letters are owned by the federal government. If they give you the letters, you can't say, I have a right to those call letters, because the call letters belong to the public domain. So if the FCC wants to do it, well, you're going to have to fight the FCC or sue them.
Yeah, you likely would have a fight on your hands still, but the thing is, even if you could get those call letters from the Fed, you probably still couldn't call your station WCBS. You probably couldn't use the CBS trademarks because Entercom, who bought it from CBS, only.
You're right. You can't use the trademark, but you could have CBS. But if somebody would, I can't see why somebody can't come back and say we want all news and make a deal. But you're right. That's probably never going to happen. But I'm really surprised someone didn't step in and buy the 880 and keep running the thing. But you still have a news network. It doesn't make any sense. It absolutely makes
You
no
know,
sense.
you mentioned the news network, the CBS News Network. I wonder, does that even still exist in New York? I mean, that Odyssey, whatever the hell their name is, AUDACY. What kind of word is that? They own WINS. They own what was WCBS. Why can't they simply air CBS National News on the hour on WINS now? But odds are we won't even have CBS News in New York anymore.
You probably won't have CBS News. Look, I don't know, but that's above my pay grade. But getting back to it, it was just, from an engineering point of view, it was the worst thing. And also, that ABCD on your touchdowns, they use that now in amateur radio and other things to control certain stuff.
Really?
Like if you want to turn on off transmitters or whatever else, they'll use the ABC tones.
Smart. Okay.
So yeah, it's a 4x4 keypad,
Mm-hmm.
and those ABCs have been around for years. It was just something that the phone company was going to use for controlling, customer control. Because you also have MF tones, which are your 7900.
Right.
Those are not used anymore.
Right. Yeah, but everybody remembers the way I describe it to people. Just listen to that Pink Floyd song on the wall where they make the long distance call. Those tones in the background, those are MF tones. Everybody gets it when I say it that way. But as far as the 4 extra buttons on Touchstone, I made reference to Silverboxing. The way that used to work was you would call. This was before long distance information cost any money. It was free to call information anywhere in the country. So you would dial 1-202-555-1212. You'd get information, and then you'd lean on the D key, and you get a pulsing dial tone, and you would be able to speak to anybody else who did the same thing for free. So anyone else who called that number and hit that D key through the pulsing dial tone, you'd be able to talk to them.
Well, I didn't realize that. But you know what? What I remember from calling the operator long distance is blowing 2600.
Uh-huh.
Blowing 2600 and dialing any way you wanted to using MF. Well, it's past the statute of limitations. They can come again.
Yeah, I think you can confess now without having to worry. Nobody understands the technology anymore, let alone will be prosecuting you for it.
Well, that's not even around anymore. At one time, having a blue box or even whistling 2600 was against the law.
I'm not sure about that, but it could definitely rankle some feathers somewhere.
Well, back in the good old days, they didn't like it. But hey, it was their mistake. They put all the signaling tones in band. Okay?
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I lived in a crossbar number 5 when I was growing up, and it turns out there was a bug in my particular crossbar where you could dial numbers that began with 1 or 0, and 1 in, say, 20 times, they would go through. So I would dial 914, which is the area code for Westchester, then 183, which is the international gateway, and then 4 more digits to fill the phone number. And either it would go to an error or it would go through. And if it went through, I got a different kind of dial tone, and I could send MF tones on that dial tone without having to blow a 2600 hertz tone. And that was cool. It was.
Well, what happens was, there was well, what probably happened is they dropped you into an overseas trunk line.
Yes.
And then you didn't have to use 2600.
I was able to blue box without doing the 2600 hertz part of blue boxing, which is what all the blue box detectors would jump on. They'd see 2600 hertz. They say, aha, there's a phone freak there, go get him. But I never did that.
I tell you what, I found a local number. I was in a crossbar 5 also. I'm not going to say what exchange it is, but I was in a crossbar 5, and you could dial. There was a number in the 99 numbers, like remember 9945, 9950, 9970. Then you had the loops. They had a number you dialed in, and all of a sudden you got a different tone. You can use a blue box and dial anywhere in the country.
Cool.
Yeah, good old days.
Those were good old days, but now everybody can call anywhere for free. So I guess we won.
You know what? I guarantee the phone company, the people back in the good old days that used to go after everybody, they got to be rolling over. What happened? Now it's free. You know, the phone company used to charge $2 or $3 for a 1-minute phone call to California. Now, you know, whatever.
Yeah, it was long distance to call from Long Island to Queens. That was long distance with New York Telephone.
By the way, it costs you
Nassau
more
to
to
Suffolk.
call interstate. It costs more to call interstate than it was to call across the country.
That's true. That's true. Interlata, I
You
believe
wanted
it's
to
called.
call New York to Nassau County, a 3-minute call would cost you more than if you called L.A.
I remember the number 35.5 cents a minute. I don't know where I'm getting that from, but I just think that was on my phone bill. 35.5 cents. That's for
Believe it
a
or
fairly
not,
local
I was
call.
probably calling, if I called from Queens to, let's say, the Bronx, from Queens to the Bronx, or Queens to certain parts of Manhattan, it was 35 cents per minute.
Maybe that was it. Maybe that was what I was seeing.
Yeah,
Good old days. So yeah, so
the
you
good
know,
old days. How
change
you
in
have-
technology can be good. This is an example of how it's good. But understanding the technology and having the hardware still able to be demonstrated, that is something we should never let go of.
Well, they have a museum. I think they have. There's a YouTube channel. There's some museum. Guys explains all the different equipment. It's on YouTube.
Yes, there's a bunch of them.
Getting back to the good old days, all I could just say is that the phone company. I can't believe how stupid they were, because the phone company used to make a big issue. We won't want you connecting anything to the phone line. They should allow people to connect. They should allow other companies to connect. So the phone company fought, and look what happens.
Well, they thought they could be a monopoly forever and keep control over how many phones we had in our homes and every aspect of telephony, and their luck ran out. Yeah, so now we have all this competition and different companies.
And guess what? AT&T, they're no longer even. They're not 1/10 of what they used to be.
Yeah.
So, they lost.
All right, listen, thanks for your call. Say hi to your dog for us, and we'll talk to you
I
again
will.
next week,
Guys,
hopefully.
maybe I'll this week.
All right. Take care. All right. Do we have time for one more? I think we do. 802-321-4225.
I would say it was definitely like a wake-up call for what companies were operating those networks. Just as far as security goes, there was a lot of lessons learned, and I think, and I'm not saying what companies are competing now have mastered any of it, but there's certainly a heightened awareness and sense of responsibility around especially telecommunications networks and internet, and just like the imperative to not let all kinds of stuff occur without some level of management, because they had examples of the free-for-all. But I think, like I alluded to it, there are still serious problems with some of the established network, and despite that heightened awareness or like emphasis on security.
Rob, Gila, anything from you guys?
Oh, just that was a lovely call, and I'm always up for long discussions of old phone freaking stuff. Yes, that is a delight.
Cool. We have another phone call? Okay. We have another phone call. Good evening. You're on Off Talk Overtime. Go ahead.
Hi, guys, and Gila, it's Johnny Fusion.
Hey, Johnny Fusion. How are you?
Hey.
I'm doing good. I'm doing all right. So there's a lot of talk about radio tonight, and I have a radio story, not from me, but from the guy I inherited the hacker gene from, my dad, who always worked in computers since the 60s.
Okay, well, do tell us.
So he worked at Rough and Ready Island, which is a Navy base just outside Stockton, California. And it basically handled all the communications for the Pacific Fleet. And there was a piece of equipment that he used, like it's all top secret and stuff, so I don't know exactly what it was, that there was a slight possibility that the local radio station would interfere with it. And so on his say-so, that radio station had to change its broadcast frequency.
Is that the whole story?
Well, and then he got a nickname. They called him Superbird, more powerful than the FCC. But yeah, he was just involved in, and I remember that happening. I didn't know my dad was involved at the time, because they had to do all this advertising that on this date, their frequency is going to change. They're going to be on a different spot on the dial and stuff. It was KJOY in Stockton. I don't remember what the frequency is. KJOY.
Wow. And what year was that?
Oh, it was the 70s. It was somewhere in the 70s, in the late 70s.
Uh-huh.
Well, there's certainly lots of examples of that need for for radio experimentation and the overlap between commercial interests and, of course, government activities. And that's, I guess, something engineers. I've learned more about that being involved with off the hook, and just how much goes into the propagation and the maps, and just like where you fit in the frequency, and how it all actually physically works. It's really just sort of, to most people, magic, but it takes a lot. And you are working within a busy environment, both technically and as far as programming and all of that, and how that all like connects and happens amidst a lot of change and just transforming of some of these stalwart entities is itself kind of an education, just bearing witness to it all, and the small part that we might play, I think, just makes it that much more magical for us, and just I don't know, noteworthy. We're certainly aware and like affected, as I mentioned, the so many examples of it being heard from afar and also locally and stuff.
Johnny, can I ask what city are you near?
I'm in the Bay Area, so near San Francisco.
Do you ever hear a station on the FM dial called 91X?
I actually don't have a radio right now.
Oh, you do the radio for this? Yeah, 91X.
Yeah, my radio's in storage.
Well, you should get out of storage, because there's a lot of good things on the radio, from what I hear.
Yeah, it really helps you hear what's in the airwaves. When
we were traveling, I was exploring the radio dial, as I'm known to do. And 91X is a station that is super powerful. You can actually get it from San Diego all the way up to San Francisco. And for FM, that's something unusual. It comes from Tijuana. It's actually in Mexico, but it's an American station. And
I think I've seen a billboard for it.
You probably have. You probably have. They can get away with things that you can't do on American radio. And it's so incredibly powerful. No American station could ever be that powerful, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Supposedly, the bandwidth, all the frequencies belong to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like their art, they're public. But the FCC controls what, so it's not chaos, basically, and everyone's stomping on each other, which is fine. But it's interesting how, as the government, like all the spectrum belongs to the people for the people's use, but they carve out little sections that say, no, this is off limits.
It is a dynamic and messy environment, I would just add. I mean, it is, even as it is managed, it's changing, and there are a wide range of types of interference, intentional and otherwise unintentional sort of things going on in the midst of all of that. And then, like we're talking about, the ownership schemes and programming. it's all not necessarily fixed. I mean, it is on paper in the way we think of it, being controlled by a bureaucracy like the FCC, but it still has its chaotic moments, I'd say.
Johnny, any final thoughts? We're going to be wrapping it up now because we're
Yes.
kind of tired.
I agree with Gila. They need to break up these big media conglomerates. It's super bad.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
And
Yeah,
you know,
it's
we're like I've seen like the clips of Sinclair Broadcasting and all these local newscasts
Hmm. Word for word.
speaking from the same script.
Yep.
Yeah.
it tends towards monopolistic behaviors, and those do not really end up going so well. In this case, you are talking about what is in the sort of the consciousness in the fabric of our conversations, and if it's mediated in that way without sort of a little bit more of a mix because of the ownership schemes, it can be tremendously harmful and in unintended ways.
Johnny, always good hearing from you.
Good talking with you.
I hope you're working on some new articles for 2600.
I don't have any ideas right now, but like I thought my last one actually got rejected, but then I got an email saying that it was in the current issue a couple months ago. But I never got the acceptance email.
That could happen sometimes, but usually it doesn't.
Yeah, just that it was published.
Okay.
So that was a pleasant surprise. Thank you. I'll get to work on something.
Cool. All right. Well, you take care, and we'll try and survive this heat.
All right, bye now.
All right. Take care. And yeah, I think the heat is affecting us because it's we're kind of sluggish here, and you might hear the fan in the background, but that's the fan that keeps us alive.
I did get
Yeah.
up to open the vent.
Yeah,
I
please.
think that's the word I'm
Let's some
searching
oxygen
for.
into the room because this room has no AC.
Yeah.
But
This room does have AC, but we because we're professional radio makers, we turned it off while we were broadcasting, and it's now 80 something degrees in here. So
I am just, sorry that most of the listeners, actually everybody who's on YouTube except you guys, doesn't get to see how red my face is right now.
it's pretty red. Pretty red. All right, folks. Great talking to people. Good to be back. Rob, Gila, Alex, wherever you are. Good talking to you again. Kyle, of course. And
What?
we'll nothing. We'll
You want to go?
please write to us. OTH.
Are we going?
OTH at 2600.com. We'll go right after the show. We'll talk to you all later. Have a good night.